Hi everyone, this is Jordan Johnson, the violinist, and I thought I'd do a different kind of video where I show you how I change my strings. And I thought of this actually after I started to change my strings. So for my violin, I already took G off, and I'm just gonna walk you step by step on how I do it. A couple of things. Number one, these are the pegs. So one end of the string actually goes inside that hole, and when it's in here actually, and then you wind it and tighten it like a clock to get the string tight. You'll notice for the D string, the A string, and the E string, those are still wound inside the peg box. This is the scroll, by the way. And so one end of the string goes up here, and then at the other end on the tail piece, which is this piece here, you have these 4 keyholes. So the ball end, what we call the ball end of the string, actually hooks inside of here, and it's held in place by the string tension for when you wind it up here. Yeah, I'll walk you through kind of how I do that, and I'll show you how I take each one off. So what I currently have on, so for G, D, and A, I'm using, these are called Peter Infeld's strings, and then a Pirastro Gold E. I've basically played them to oblivion, so it's time to change them finally. But I find these strings, these are a little bit pricier strings, but I really like the feel, the string tension, what we call the string tension. And I also like the balance, and they also last a really long time. And for the new set, I'm gonna be using what are called Vision. So for G, D, and A, I'll be using Vision, and then the same gold label, or sorry, gold Pirastro for the E string. So to get started, I hold my violin kind of like this against my abdomen. I'm gonna grab the G string. You'll notice this end is green. Hi, Minxie, that's my cat. Hi, are you behaving? Hopefully she's gonna behave for the duration of this video. So this end I'm gonna put in here like so. Just kind of hold it in place. And actually, before I go up to the peg box, you'll notice the bridge here, which is this part, there's notches for each string where the string will rest. So I'm just gonna make sure it slides right in there like that. I'm gonna keep it in tension. And it's okay if the other end does come out. You can always re-put it in or put it back. But I try to do this all in sort of one motion. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna align the peg. I'm gonna pull that out a little bit so that the hole opening is aligned, and I can just thread this end of the string in. So I'm gonna thread it in like so. And I want to see a little bit come out the other end. Hopefully that will show up. So then after that, I'm gonna kind of hold it in place, and then I'm gonna start turning. Now the trick with these are that other end that's come out, you want that end to be wrapped by the remainder of the string. So this can usually take a little bit of time, but I try to wrap it in such a way that it's aligned with the right side. I might not be able to do it in this video, but this string is a little bit opposite, but it's okay. For right now, I'll just wrap it. So I would do it kind of like that, one loop down, then I'll push in a little bit, and then wrap it like so. And again, this is backwards, so I'm just doing this for the purpose of the video. So then I'm gonna make sure, as an example, make sure that this is called the nut, this little white piece here. Usually it's black, but the string will rest in there, and then you just want to double check to make sure it's resting in the nook on the bridge, and then also just down here to make sure everything looks good. And that's basically how you change strings. So I'm going to be quiet now and try to change the others. Actually, I lied. I'm going to fix this one first and then work on the other ones. Oops. So sometimes if it comes out like that, you can just straighten it a little bit. And then we're going to thread it back through like so. So hopefully now when I turn it, it'll face that way, which is what I want. Nope, not quite. Okay, that looks okay. Here, maybe sometimes you can kind of pull it through a little bit and then sort of kind of get it where you want it. This may or may not work, but we'll see. Okay, I think it's gonna work. So you'll see I'm gonna turn this, and this first loop is gonna be on the right side of the peg. So it just popped up now. So now it's on the side that I want it to be on. So now I'm gonna do one loop. Oop, hold on. Let me go back and, oh no, I wanted to do the loop the other way. We'll pull it through a little bit. We'll do one, there we go, okay. So now it's facing to this side. So I'm gonna do one loop, and then I'm gonna kind of hold it in place using the remainder. Sometimes it slips from underneath, like it just did, just like that. So then you just go back and kind of start over. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I try to get at least one loop over before I push it. Nope, it's okay. So that string for right now. Is okay. So once you get your string on, you always want to double check the bridge. You can kind of eyeball it and see if it's leaning. Let me see if I can get the right angle. So you want the bridge to be mostly upright. There we go. You want the bridge to be mostly upright. If you try to change all of the strings without checking it, it'll start to bend that way and then it could fall over. So you can just sort of reset it by doing this, and you just push a little bit of pressure to reset the bridge so that it's upright. And you can tell that it's upright. I may or may not be able to get this kind of shot, but the feet will be perfectly flat and flush against the surface. So if you need to adjust it either forwards or backwards, you want to make sure the feet are flush like that. So we've done G. Next, I'm going to do D. So this one's D. They actually come in really pretty packaging. I really like the color and the design of the string packages. So this is D. And notice the color for this one is green. So G was orange up here. This one's green. And then at the bottom, they're all green. Just like these were all purple, these will all be green down here. So I'm gonna set this down for a hot second. I'm gonna take G out, or sorry, D string. So we're gonna just very lightly loosen the peg. You can see it unraveling. You can see how I did this one where it was bent underneath like that. So that was how I was trying to get G. So we're gonna take this one out. And I always save my old strings as backups just in case something happens to the current strings. So you never want to be without a set of backup strings. And I have a little container that I use, that I keep in my case. This is where the old G string is. So I'll put the other ones back in there as well. So let's do D string. Kind of the same procedure. We're gonna go down here. We're gonna thread it through. Like so. I'm gonna align. This one's a little easier because there's not a peg over top of D. So it's a little easier to kind of align it and get it how I want it. So let's thread that through. Like so. Now you can kind of really see what I was trying to do before. So one loop like that. We're going to thread it to the left side here, because that's the side where the peg is. There we go. It looks like it came down, or came out down here, so let's go back. Gotta loosen it a little bit. Oops. Same thing, I'm gonna align the notch with the string. Bring it back up here. Doesn't look too bad. Let's do that. There we go. Oops. Check our bridge. I think she's doing okay. Probably could adjust it just a little bit. You do want to be a little careful when you're adjusting the bridge. Sometimes it can move. You want to keep it, there's different places, slightly different places you can put the bridge, but there's little notches here. There's a notch there and a notch there. And again, your luthier can help you with this. So this isn't like a perfect science, I would say. But if you're not sure, you can kind of align the feet with the notches. Yeah. So mine are a little bit, I put my bridge a little bit further back. Just the sound I like is a little bit better there, but you can put it in between the two notches. So that's D. That one was easy. Easier. Can do A next. I'm saving the hard one for last. E string is not always the most pleasant. So we're gonna loosen A. I'll set that over there, and A, it looks like it's blue. The winding is blue, and the bottom is green. Make sure our notch is aligned. This one can be a little bit tricky because there's not a lot of space behind the peg. So, and also A string is the longest one. So that one can be a little bit tricky to try and thread through. Sometimes I have to use pliers to kind of pull a little bit more through, but I might have enough. Might have enough for this one, so. So now I'm gonna wind this one to the right because that's where the peg comes out. And again, this is just the way that I do it. There's kind of different ways you can string a violin, if you will. So I'm gonna make sure the nut here is aligned, and then let's go down and look at the bridge. There we go. Oh, by the way, the strings take a little time to stretch out. I'm gonna do a cool trick to kind of temper them so that they're a little bit more ready to play that I'll show in a little bit, maybe even in a separate video. But that's A, and then finally we have E string, my favorite. So let's loosen E. You'll notice there's this little yellow piece up here. So this piece is actually a guard for the bridge. So sometimes the E string is well, it's really thin. So sometimes it can cut down into the bridge a little bit. So you can use this little plastic piece to protect your bridge. I actually had my luthier put like a little piece of plastic over top. You may or may not be able to see it. You can't really see it, but there's a little plastic piece here to protect the wood of the bridge so it doesn't cut down or wear down so easily when playing and when tuning. So, but for mine, I just kind of shove it up there so that it doesn't move around. If you play and this is kind of loose, it'll vibrate and buzz and sound really, really annoying, which who wants that? right? So we're gonna loosen E. Go down here. So E, while we're talking about it, is a little bit different. So mine, I have one fine tuner here for E, and this is actually a loop. So if we look at the string, it's a loop. So it doesn't have a ball like the other three do. There we go. So you can see they have balls at the end that hook underneath. This one, the E string, has an actual hook. Hopefully it'll focus. There's an actual hook that this little loop goes over. So you can order E strings that have what we call a ball end so that it will attach in like that, or they have fine tuners actually that are connected to tail pieces that sort of look like this, but you can connect a ball end to it. So let me sit E down. Let's open this one. And this one, it looks like, is gold at the end and then green up at the top. So here's that yellow piece I was talking about. So I might be able to do it. Let's see. I might have to do it when I put the string on, but I'm gonna kind of shove it on the green part so that it doesn't move around. So first, let me go down here. This is one that also, if it comes loose, you just have to kind of redo it down here. So now I've hooked it around like so. Oh, there we go. Now you can see the hook. So that's the hook for E string. Gonna try to align it. Again, it might come loose and I'll have to redo that part. Let me shove that part up like so. So it's not wiggling around. Let's align the E peg. And this one's really long, so this one is a little easier to put in, but sometimes it can be a little tricky to wind the other side. So let's do that. I'm gonna hold it tight like so. Oh, okay, this one's gonna be good. So I'm gonna do one loop. And actually I was able to loop that on the first loop, so I don't really have to worry about the other end, but I will loop it just in case. Oops. There we go. Great, so now that the nut is aligned, down here at the bridge is aligned like so. And, oh, I meant to mention this earlier. So when you tighten your strings, you do want to like push in a little bit. Some pegs are a little bit more worn than others, so you have to use a little more elbow grease to really push it in. So you see how it's kind of doing that? So that means that I need to wind the string a little bit more towards the wall. I'm actually going to pull out a little bit of the string, so I have a little bit of extra room. Yeah, they're going to be out of tune for a little bit. E, usually you don't have to do anything to it. It usually stays mostly in tune. I also like to double check to reset the fine tuner down here. So just to the point where when I start turning it, it will tighten. So E's pretty good. Let's check our bridge. Looks pretty good to me. I might double check it a little bit later. And that's how you change strings. So like I said, I'm gonna put, or if I didn't mention this, I'm gonna put the spare strings in this little holder, which is gonna stay in my case. And now for the cool part, I learned this working in a violin shop. So I'm gonna loosen, we're gonna start with A. So what I'm gonna do is temper the strings. So what that means is, and you can see the marks on this cloth here. So strings have machine oil inside of them. And so something you can do to temper the strings, which means makes the metal fibers bind a little bit more to the core of the string. You can heat the string up and the machine oil will come out of the strings, and then the strings will stay in tune longer and they'll be more ready to play. So what I'm gonna do is loosen A. You don't have to do it for E string because it's really, really thin. But for A string, I'm gonna take this piece of cloth. So it's kind of loose. I pushed the peg back in so it's not too loose. So now what I'm gonna do is hold the string and I'm just gonna rub this cloth and turn a little bit up and down the string. And it's gonna bind the fibers of the metal with the core so that the string stays in tune when I tighten it. So, and again, this is just what I do. If you feel uncomfortable doing this, you can ask your luthier to do it, take it to a violin shop. And again, it's not something you have to do. So the string does get a little hot. Then I'm gonna go up here and do this part. Like so. Then I'll do a little bit of the whole thing. And that's it. Then I'm gonna retighten it again. So you'll see that's the machine oil that's come out of the strings. Kind of cool. So now I'm gonna tighten it. It'll still probably go out of tune a little bit, but it'll be very much ready to play by tomorrow. I'm gonna do the same thing for D. Oops. Careful not to drop your instrument because that would not be cool. Here, let me reset my categories. Okay, same thing. Go down. And you can do this gently, it doesn't have to be an arduous process. You do want to be careful you don't put too much tension on the tailpiece or the string. So there we go, there's our machine oil. We're gonna retighten. Check our bridge. Looks okay to me. I might adjust it later. And then finally, we'll do G. So I'm gonna loosen it a little bit. And same procedure. Turn. Oops. Okay. There's our machine oil, not as much. And then we're going to retighten. Okay, that one's just going to be like that, and that's okay. Good, all of that looks pretty good. Our strings are in their notches. And that's how you change strings. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, a little behind the scenes on changing strings. And there's different thoughts about changing strings, right? So I know some people who've played on strings for 2 years. I generally try to change mine every 4 to 6 months, depending on how much playing I'm doing. So Same thing with the bow, the getting a rehair, usually depending on how much you're playing, every 4 to 6 weeks-ish. Sorry, months, 4 to 6 months. And with strings, 4 to 6 months, not weeks. I do know some people who change their E string like once a month or, a couple times every few months, because the E string does wear down, and actually just changing the E string can kind of revitalize the sound of your instrument a little bit. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Have an awesome night.